What's up guys, SkyKevin here, and today we're going over the Warhammer for New World. We're going to go into each of the skills, its abilities, and fighting styles associated with the weapon. So, let's get started. The Warhammer so far is probably the least used weapon I've seen so far. There have been very few players that have used it so far for the most recent beta, mostly due to its inferiority to the Great Axe. It has some good AoE stuns and frontline capabilities, but it falls short in having less of a mobility and AoE lockdowns than what the Great Axe encompasses. Additionally, since most players use light or medium armor, the anti-armor pieces of the Warhammer don't usually apply to those that have a lot of extra mobility. For the mastery trees, we have Juggernaut and Crowd Crusher. Armor Breaker is a swing that has grit, 35% armor penetration, reduces the enemy's absorption by 15%, and deals 15% more damage to targets with full HP. Mighty Gavel smashes down on enemies, dealing 20% more damage to enemies under 30% HP, deals 25% stamina damage, increases movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds, and with the Justice for All ultimate, adds a second attack, dealing 200% damage. Wrecking Ball slams the ground, dealing damage and granting a 20% damage resistance buff in an AoE of 1.5 meters. Shockwave slams the hammer down into the ground, damaging and stunning enemies around you for 2 seconds. It adds a 10% damage reduction buff to enemies within a 4 meter radius as well. Clear Out swings an attack at an enemy, granting a 10% damage absorption buff for you, and gives a 30% movement speed buff for 3 seconds as well. It also has its cooldown reduced by 5% for each enemy hit with it. Lastly, Path of Destiny hits the ground in a line ahead of you, staggering anyone hit by it, and also has its cooldown reduced by 5% for each enemy hit. The ultimate for the right side of the tree is Aftershock, which passively slows enemies by 20% anytime they're affected by any crowd control effects. For passives, they have 10% armor penetration for all attacks, 15% stamina regeneration debuffs on enemies, cooldowns reduced by 7% for all heavy attacks. Heavy attacks give a 20% damage buff. Targets under 30% HP take 15% more damage from heavy attacks, 35% extra damage for 1 second after taking any damage yourself. Heavy attacks get grit and 20% damage reduction, 10% damage absorption if surrounded by 2 or more enemies, 15% movement speed after hitting a debuffed enemy, debuff durations reduced 25% after 2 swings, reduced stamina consumption by 30% when blocking melee attacks, reduced damage taken by 10% while sprinting, 15% additional damage to enemies with debuffs, regain 35% damage as HP when using an ability, and reduced cooldowns by 7% when using light attacks against enemies with a debuff. I've seen a few cases where the Warhammer has been useful, particularly in large team fights or group fights, where you want something with a little extra stun or oomph. Unfortunately, that's really all people use it for most of the time, and it's not often used in any other capacity since, as I mentioned above, nobody's really wearing heavy armor. That being said, I think it does have some good synergy if they were to be used in tandem with another debuff type class, given their level of cooldown reduction. If you were in a group, it might be worth it to pull out the hammer to handle the various crowd control and damage coming your way. Unfortunately though, I think it's far overshadowed by the Great Axe and its capabilities to deal tons of damage while still making you a very tanky target. If you're planning to be using the Warhammer, let me know what your build will be in the comments down below. I always make sure I answer every question and read through every comment. I'm always making more videos like this one on New World and other MMOs, so don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.